Hello and welcome to Maximum Foods Inside Track, the second last one for the year. Only 21 sleeps till Christmas, so I hope everyone's getting excited. Very busy time of the year, so I hope everyone's looking after themselves as well. Let's have a look at the dairy industry. As we've mentioned over the last few inside tracks, been a really bullish market on whole milk powder. That continued again last night on the GDT, going up another 4%. In terms of Chinese participation, they have bought 58% of whole milk this year, as opposed to about 34% from last year. So nearly doubled in participation this year, hence really driving that pricing. O'Neill tender as well over the last month has also soaked up a lot of product internationally. So so still bullish conditions on whole milk powder and a relatively firm outlook for the next 3 months. Having a look at skim milk powder, if we look on a global scale in the US, still firm conditions on non-fat there, good domestic demand and also demand in Central South America, keeping pricing quite firm. In the EU, we have seen skim level out a bit in demand. Supply has been reasonable, so not a lot of activity on skim. In Australia and New Zealand, in the last three GDT events, we have seen some firmish activity. That has leveled out last night, so it seems as though there has been a bit of a balance met in skim supply and demand, and a reasonably flat outlook for the next 3 months. The most topical of the dairy commodities being butterfat. We saw a 5% decrease last night on the GDT. It's a bit hard to get any messaging out of that. It seems to be that 7,000 US on the GDT being that ceiling. We've seen it pop over 7,000 twice in the last 6 months, and then come back will correct itself after that. So yeah, it's hard to see any real market direction in fats. You would assume that pricing will remain firm in the next 3 months, just looking at the supply and demand dynamics, but it is telling to see that resistance at those higher prices. Moving across to cheese, we've seen some more bearish conditions out there globally. US supply seems good, demand globally down a little, and domestically. So we've seen pricing on the CME come off over the last 2 to 3 months. If we look over in the EU, supply is reasonably good, demand holding up okay as well, so reasonably flat conditions in the EU. In Australia and New Zealand, we've seen firming of pricing. GDT came back a little bit last night, but still relatively good retail and food service demand, particularly in Australia as we lead into Christmas. Finishing off with sweet whey and proteins. Whey powder, not a lot of news there on sweet whey, a reasonably flat market. Less milk in the EU has meant some of the sweet whey pricing out of the EU firming. If we look at the protein side of thing, don't mean to sound like a broken record, but those proteins are really tight in supply. WPC 80 out of the US seems very scarce and therefore pricing high. In the EU, much the same, especially on WPI. So we're very low in supply, high in demand, especially in that adult nutrition, sports nutrition markets. So we continue to see a really bullish outlook on proteins. Thanks very much for listening to today's Inside Track. Not long till Christmas. It's a very hectic time of year, so look after yourself and be kind to one another.